Dear soul, your special person does not even want to look at your face right now. Not because they hate you. Not because your presence no longer matters. And not because every feeling they once carried has disappeared. They avoid your face because they have discovered a truth that makes it impossible for them to continue pretending. You are the person their heart has never been able to forget. You are the one they still love more deeply than they have ever admitted. You are the person they now recognize as their divine partner. But when love asked them to be courageous, they rejected you. That is the truth they are struggling to face. Looking at you would force them to remember the moment they had something rare in their hands and allowed fear to take it away. Your eyes would remind them of every promise they failed to keep. Your expression would remind them of the pain they created. And your silence would ask a question they still do not know how to answer. Why did you reject the person you claimed to love? They once convinced themselves that walking away from you was the correct decision. They told themselves that the connection was too complicated. They repeated every reason the relationship could not work. They listened to the doubts of people who had never experienced what existed between the two of you. They allowed temporary fear to become more powerful than a love that had reached the deepest places within them. For a while, they believed they had escaped the situation. They believed distance would bring relief. They thought that once they stopped seeing you, hearing your voice, and feeling your presence, their emotions would slowly become weaker. But the opposite happened. Your absence did not erase the connection. It revealed its importance. At first, they attempted to remain busy. They filled their days with responsibilities, conversations, entertainment, and people who knew nothing about the private battle taking place inside them. They laughed when laughter was expected. They smiled for photographs. They answered questions by saying they were fine. They behaved as though leaving you had made their life easier. But every night, when the noise disappeared, the truth returned. They remembered you. They remembered the way your face changed whenever you were trying not to show that something had hurt you. They remembered the warmth in your voice when you spoke to them with genuine care. They remembered the small details you noticed that everyone else ignored. They remembered how you could tell when their smile was real and when it was hiding sadness. You had seen them in a way that frightened them. Most people accepted the version of themselves they presented to the world. You looked beyond it. You recognized the fear beneath their confidence. You sensed the loneliness beneath their independence. You noticed the questions they were afraid to ask. And instead of using those hidden places against them, you loved them there. That kind of love should have made them feel safe. Instead, it made them feel exposed. They were accustomed to relationships in which they could remain partly hidden. They knew how to manage shallow connections. They knew how to offer enough affection to keep someone close while protecting the wounded areas of their heart. But that strategy did not work with you. You could feel when they were pulling away. You knew when their words did not match their emotions. You could sense that they loved you even when they acted uncertain. And because you saw so much, they began to fear that you would eventually see everything. They feared you would discover the mistakes they had never forgiven themselves for. They feared you would see how deeply previous rejection had affected them. They feared that if they gave you their whole heart, you would possess the power to destroy it. So they attempted to regain control. They became distant. Their messages changed. Their warmth became inconsistent. One day, they made you feel as though you were the most important person in their world. The next day, they behaved as though the connection meant nothing. You tried to understand. You gave them space. You questioned yourself. You wondered whether you had imagined the depth between you. But you had not imagined it. They were fighting feelings that had become stronger than their ability to control them. Instead of admitting that they were afraid, they acted as though you were the problem. They may have called you too emotional. They may have said you expected too much. They may have accused you of seeing meaning where none existed. Perhaps they told you they were not ready for commitment. Perhaps they said the timing was wrong. Perhaps they claimed they needed to focus on themselves. Some of those statements may have contained a part of the truth. But none of them revealed the complete truth. The complete truth was that loving you required a level of honesty they had never practiced before. It required them to stop running. It required them to challenge the expectations of others. It required them to make a decision without knowing whether everyone around them would approve. It required them to become emotionally responsible. And at that time, they were not prepared. So they rejected you. They may have done it gently. They may have done it suddenly. They may have disappeared instead of speaking directly. Or perhaps they said words they knew would hurt you because they believed pain would make you leave faster. They thought that if they made you angry enough, you would stop waiting for them. They believed your anger would release them from the responsibility of explaining their fear. But after you left, they discovered something they had not expected. Your absence did not feel like freedom. It felt like loss. The relief they expected never arrived. Instead, ordinary moments began reminding them of you. A song played, and suddenly they remembered a conversation. Someone used a phrase you often used, and their heart became still. They passed a familiar place and imagined you standing beside them. They saw someone with a similar smile, but it was not your smile. They met new people, but every connection felt incomplete. These people may have been attractive. They may have been kind. They may have been available in ways you were no longer available. But something was missing. They could not create the same emotional depth. They could not force the same sense of recognition. They could not reproduce the peace they had experienced when you were near. That was when comparison began. They compared the way others listened to the way you listened. They compared the conversations. They compared the laughter. They compared the emotional safety. They compared the silence. Even the quiet moments with you had carried meaning. With others, the silence felt empty. This comparison was unfair to everyone involved, but they could not stop doing it. Every person they tried to know became another reminder that you were not easily replaceable. Slowly, the story they had told themselves began to collapse. They had claimed that you were too much for them. Now they realized that you had only asked for honesty. They had claimed that the relationship created pressure. Now they understood that the pressure came from their own refusal to make a clear decision. They had claimed they needed distance to find peace. But distance from you had created a restlessness they could not explain. They had believed rejecting you would protect their heart. Instead, it forced them to live with the knowledge that they had wounded the person who had loved them sincerely. This realization did not arrive in one dramatic moment. It came in pieces. One memory at a time. One lonely night at a time. One disappointing connection at a time. One moment of regret after another. Then something happened that made denial impossible. Perhaps they saw you unexpectedly. Perhaps your photograph appeared before them. Perhaps someone spoke about you. Perhaps they heard that you had changed, healed, or begun moving forward. Whatever occurred, it brought your face back into their awareness. And suddenly, they could no longer hide from what they felt. They saw your face and remembered how you had once looked at them with trust. That memory became painful because they knew they had damaged that trust. They remembered the hope you carried. They remembered the questions you asked. They remembered how you tried to understand their confusion even while it was hurting you. And they realized that your love had not been the threat. Their fear had been the threat. You were not trying to control them. You were asking them to stop treating the connection as something they could enter and leave whenever their emotions became uncomfortable. You were not asking for perfection. You were asking for clarity. You were asking them to speak honestly instead of keeping you trapped between hope and uncertainty. But they did not give you clarity. They gave you mixed signals. They gave you meaningful moments followed by unexplained distance. They gave you promises that their behavior could not support. Then, when the connection required a responsible decision, they rejected you. Now they understand the cost. This is why they struggle to look at you. Your face does not accuse them, but their conscience does. Your presence reminds them of the version of themselves they wish they had been. They imagine how different everything might have become if they had chosen courage. They imagine the conversations you could have shared. They imagine the life you might have built. They wonder whether the peace they have been searching for was standing before them all along. Their regret has grown so deep that sometimes they become angry with themselves. They replay the final moments between you, searching for a way to change what has already happened. They think about the words they should have spoken. I am frightened, but I do not want to lose you. I do not know how to handle these feelings. I need time, but I do not want to punish you with silence. I love you, but I am afraid of what loving you may require. Any one of these statements could have created an honest conversation. Instead, they chose rejection. At the time, rejection seemed easier than vulnerability. Now it has become the decision they regret most. Dear soul, they are beginning to understand why forgetting you has been impossible. It is not merely because the attraction was strong. Attraction can fade. It is not only because the memories were beautiful. Beautiful memories can become distant. They cannot forget you because the connection awakened a part of them that had been asleep. Before you, they had accepted certain patterns as normal. They believed love always required someone to hide. They believed emotional distance was strength. They believed that needing another person was dangerous. They believed remaining in control was more important than being fully known. Then you entered their life. You made them feel seen without forcing them to perform. You challenged them without trying to humiliate them. You offered affection, but you also reflected the truth. The connection revealed what they still needed to heal. That is why they sometimes blamed you for the discomfort. It was easier to reject the mirror than to face what the mirror revealed. But removing the mirror did not remove the wounds. After you were gone, the same fears appeared in other situations. The same inability to communicate followed them. The same habit of withdrawing whenever emotions became intense continued. Eventually, they could no longer pretend that you had caused those patterns. You had simply made them visible. This understanding has changed the way they view you. They once saw your emotional awareness as pressure. Now they recognize it as a form of intimacy. They once saw your questions as demands. Now they understand that you were attempting to protect the connection from confusion. They once believed your love would always remain available. Now they realize you may have finally learned to live without them. That possibility frightens them more than they will admit. They wonder whether someone else is now receiving the love they failed to value. They wonder whether another person looks into your eyes without turning away. They wonder whether somebody else appreciates your loyalty, your patience, and your ability to love deeply. They know they have no right to be jealous. They were the one who rejected you. They were the one who allowed fear to make the decision. But the heart does not become reasonable simply because regret arrives late. Their heart still reaches toward you. They may check for signs of you. They may ask about you indirectly. They may revisit places where they once felt close to you. They may begin typing a message and then erase it before sending. Every attempt to contact you brings them face to face with the possibility that you may not answer. They fear hearing the same rejection they once gave you. They fear that you will look at them calmly and say, "It is too late." They fear that you no longer feel anything. But perhaps their deepest fear is that you still love them. Because if love remains between you, they can no longer blame the ending entirely on circumstances. They will have to admit that they abandoned something mutual. They will have to explain why they allowed a real connection to suffer. They will have to take responsibility without hiding behind timing, family, distance, confusion, or personal pressure. This is the place where their transformation must begin. Regret alone is not transformation. Missing you is not transformation. Realizing that no one else feels the same is not transformation. Even recognizing you as their divine partner is not enough. A divine connection must still be treated with human responsibility. Love needs communication. Trust needs consistency. A partnership needs two people who can remain present when reality becomes difficult. They rejected you once because the emotion frightened them. If they return without changing, the same fear could make them reject you again. That is why this season is not only about reunion. It is about whether they are finally prepared to become the person the relationship requires. They are being asked to examine themselves honestly. Why did they pull away when they felt loved? Why did peace make them suspicious? Why did they trust outside opinions more than their own experience? Why did they believe distance would protect them? Why did they expect you to understand feelings they refused to communicate? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. They cannot simply appear before you and say, "I finally understand that you are the one." You deserve to know what has actually changed. You deserve more than a powerful declaration made during loneliness. You deserve evidence that they can now handle the love they once rejected. Your heart has already paid for their confusion. You spent time wondering what was wrong with you. You questioned whether you had been too open. You may have promised yourself that you would never again show another person how deeply you cared. Their behavior made you feel as though your love had been a mistake. But your love was not the mistake. The mistake was offering it to someone who did not yet know how to receive it responsibly. You were sincere. You attempted to communicate. You gave chances. You waited longer than some people understood. Perhaps you even defended them when others told you to walk away. You believed there was a loving heart beneath their fear. You were right about the heart. But love hidden beneath fear could not give you the stability you needed. You had to learn that potential is not the same as partnership. You cannot build a future only upon what someone might become. You must also observe who they are willing to be now. This separation taught you painful lessons. It taught you that you can love another person and still choose your dignity. It taught you that patience should not become permission for someone to remain careless. It taught you that spiritual recognition does not remove the need for boundaries. It taught you that a deep connection can be genuine while still being unhealthy in its current form. You began gathering the pieces of yourself that had been scattered by uncertainty. You stopped asking why you were not enough. You slowly understood that their rejection reflected their emotional condition, not your value. You learned to breathe without waiting for their message. You began creating peace in places where their inconsistency had produced anxiety. And just as you started returning to yourself, they began realizing what they had lost. This timing may feel unfair. You prayed for clarity while they remained silent. You wanted them to understand when your heart was still waiting openly. Now that you have become stronger, they are awakening. But perhaps this delay has protected you from accepting another incomplete return. The earlier version of you might have welcomed them back without questions. You might have accepted a simple apology because hearing, "I miss you," would have felt like enough. Now you know that missing someone and being ready for them are different things. Your person may miss you desperately. They may love you more than anyone. They may genuinely believe you are their divine partner. But are they prepared to communicate when fear returns? Are they prepared to defend the relationship without becoming controlled by other people's opinions? Are they prepared to admit when they are wrong? Are they prepared to listen to the pain their rejection caused without becoming defensive? Are they prepared to rebuild trust at your pace rather than demanding immediate forgiveness? These answers matter more than the intensity of their regret. Dear soul, a return may be forming. Your person feels drawn to speak. The silence has become more painful than the possibility of rejection. They know they cannot continue watching your life from a distance while pretending their heart has moved on. But their approach may be hesitant. They may begin with a small message. They may ask an ordinary question because they do not know how to begin the real conversation. They may say, "I hope you are doing well." Behind that simple sentence could be months of emotion. They may be waiting to see whether you respond warmly. They may hope you will make the difficult part easier for them. But you are not responsible for carrying the entire conversation. If they want reconciliation, they must find the courage to state their intention clearly. You do not need another confusing exchange. You do not need another person entering your life just enough to disturb your healing and then disappearing again. If they contact you, allow their effort to reveal their seriousness. A person who truly wishes to repair harm will eventually move beyond vague messages. They will say what happened. They will acknowledge what they did. They will explain without making excuses. They will not place the responsibility for their rejection upon you. They will not say, "You made me feel too much." They will not claim that your love forced them to run. They will recognize that they made a choice from fear. A sincere apology may sound like this: "I loved you, but I did not know how to handle that love. Instead of speaking honestly, I pushed you away. I understand that my actions hurt you. I am not asking you to forget what happened. I am asking whether I can show you that I am learning to respond differently. Those words would not repair everything immediately. But they would open a door through honesty. You would still be allowed to ask questions. You would still be allowed to take time. You would still be allowed to say that love remains but trust does not yet feel safe. If they truly love you, they will respect this. They will understand that your caution is not revenge. It is the natural consequence of being rejected by someone you trusted. They may want to look into your eyes and see the same softness that once welcomed them. But they must accept that your eyes now carry wisdom. You are not the person they left behind. The silence changed you. It taught you to recognize the difference between words and patterns. It taught you to stop romanticizing pain. It taught you that you do not need to chase someone to prove the purity of your feelings. If this person returns, they will meet a heart that can love deeply without abandoning itself. That may surprise them. They may have imagined that you would either reject them completely or fall into their arms immediately. Instead, you may listen calmly. You may tell them that you always sense the love beneath their fear. You may also tell them that hidden love did not protect you from visible pain. You may say, "I do not doubt that you felt something. I doubt whether you were prepared to honor it." That truth may be difficult for them to hear. Let it be difficult. Growth does not always feel comforting. They need to understand that privately loving you while publicly rejecting you was not enough. Thinking about you at night did not heal the wound. Comparing everyone to you did not rebuild trust. Calling you a divine partner inside their mind did not create an actual partnership. Love must eventually become action. If it remains only a hidden emotion, it becomes another form of avoidance. The heavens may bring two people into one another's path, but each person must still decide how to treat the connection. Free will does not disappear because a bond feels spiritual. A divine opportunity can still be rejected. A sacred connection can still be mishandled. And sometimes the lesson is not that two people must reunite at any cost. Sometimes the lesson is that love requires courage, timing, truth, and responsibility. Your person is now learning this. They once believed that calling you their divine partner meant the connection would always wait. They assumed that if the bond was real, they could return whenever they were finally ready. But you are not a lesson suspended in time. You are a living person. You have your own path. You have the right to heal, grow, and make new choices. A spiritual connection does not give another person permanent ownership of your heart. If they waited too long, they must accept that reality. If you are still available and your heart remains open, a new beginning may be possible. But it must be mutually chosen. It cannot be demanded through destiny. They cannot say, "We are meant to be, so you must forgive me." They cannot use divine language to avoid answering human questions. They cannot ask you to ignore repeated behavior because the connection feels powerful. What is truly sacred will not require you to surrender your judgment. Healthy love welcomes truth. It respects consent. It allows time to reveal character. Perhaps this is why they cannot look at your face today. Your face represents both love and consequence. It reminds them of what they desire and what they damaged. They see the person their heart recognizes, but they also see the person they failed to protect. Their instinct is to look away because shame tells them they no longer deserve your love. But shame cannot repair the past. Avoiding you cannot restore what was lost. If they are sincere, they must learn to hold your gaze and speak honestly. They must allow you to see their regret without turning it into a performance. They must be willing to hear that you suffered too. This story cannot center only on their awakening. While they were discovering that they could not forget you, you were learning how to survive being forgotten. While they were comparing others to you, you were questioning whether their feelings had ever been real. While they were silently regretting the rejection, you were carrying the visible consequences. Their pain matters. But yours matters too. A true reunion would create room for both. It would not ask you to silence your experience so they could feel forgiven. It would allow grief and love to sit in the same conversation. It would permit you to say, "I understand that you were afraid, but your fear still hurt me. I believe you loved me, but your behavior made me feel unwanted. I can forgive you, but I need consistency before I trust you again." These statements are not attacks. They are the language of mature reconciliation. Your person may cry when they hear them. They may finally understand the depth of the wound. Let their tears belong to them. You do not have to rush to comfort them by denying your truth. If the connection is going to become healthy, both people must learn that difficult emotions can be experienced without running away. That was one of the original weaknesses between you. When feelings became intense, they withdrew. You may then have reached for reassurance. The more you reached, the more they withdrew. The more they withdrew, the more anxious you became. Soon, both of you were reacting to fear rather than speaking from love. A second chance cannot recreate that cycle. They must learn to remain present. You must learn not to chase clarity from someone who refuses to provide it. If they need time, they must communicate that need respectfully. If you feel uncertain, you must express it without testing them. Neither person should disappear to gain control. Neither person should create jealousy to force a reaction. Neither person should use silence as punishment. The new connection must be built through conversations that the old connection avoided. You will need to discuss what rejection meant. You will need to discuss why they felt afraid. You will need to examine the influence of family, previous relationships, self-worth, and emotional habits. You will need to understand what commitment means to each of you. You may discover that love is still powerful. You may also discover practical differences that need attention. Do not fear these conversations. Truth does not destroy what is healthy. It reveals what can genuinely be built. Your person may tell you that no one has ever affected them the way you did. They may confess that they tried to replace you. They may admit that every attempt failed. Listen, but do not base your decision upon comparison. You do not need to be better than everyone else to deserve faithful love. The value of the relationship should not depend only upon their inability to find another version of you. They must love you for who you are, not merely because alternatives disappointed them. Ask whether they now understand your heart. Ask whether they respect your needs. Ask whether they have developed the courage to choose responsibly. Ask what they plan to do differently when the old fear returns. A person can feel tremendous regret and still repeat the same behavior. The true test will arrive after the reunion becomes ordinary. When the excitement fades, will they still communicate? When an argument occurs, will they remain? When someone questions the relationship, will they defend their decision calmly? When you need reassurance, will they respond with compassion rather than calling you demanding? When they need space, will they explain rather than vanish? These quiet actions will tell you whether the awakening is real. Dear soul, do not attempt to punish them simply because you now hold the power they once held. There may be a temptation to make them wait. You may want them to feel the same uncertainty they gave you. You may want to ignore their message so they understand the pain of silence. But healing is not created by exchanging roles in the same unhealthy pattern. You can protect yourself without becoming cruel. You can take time without manipulating them. You can say, I am willing to talk, but I am not ready to decide. You can say, I need to observe whether your actions remain consistent. That is clarity. If you choose not to reunite, communicate that choice honestly when it is safe to do so. You do not owe endless access, but you do not need to create confusion deliberately. Let your response reflect the kind of love and maturity you wanted to receive. There is another truth your special person must confront. They did not reject you only because they feared the relationship. A part of them also doubted whether they deserved it. Your love exposed a belief they had carried for years, that if someone truly knew them, that person would eventually leave. So they left first. They created the ending they feared because controlling the loss felt safer than being surprised by it. Now they recognize the tragedy of that decision. You were not preparing to abandon them. You were attempting to come closer. But their old wounds interpreted closeness as danger. This does not excuse their behavior. It explains the healing they must undertake. You cannot love that wound out of them by yourself. You cannot promise enough, reassure enough, or sacrifice enough to permanently remove a fear they refuse to address. They must participate in their own healing. They may need prayer. They may need honest reflection. They may need support from a wise counselor or trusted person. They may need to examine the childhood experiences and previous betrayals that taught them to fear intimacy. Your role is not to become their healer. You can be a partner. You can offer compassion. But you cannot carry responsibility for every emotional reaction they experience. They must learn to distinguish between what you are doing and what their past is telling them to fear. In the same way, you must heal the part of yourself that became accustomed to uncertainty. You may have mistaken emotional intensity for proof of destiny. You may have remained longer than was healthy because you believed suffering meant the connection was spiritually important. But divine love does not require endless confusion. Challenges may appear, yet the relationship should gradually produce greater honesty, peace, and maturity. If every reunion is followed by another rejection, observe the pattern. Do not call a cycle sacred merely because it is difficult to leave. A healthy bond can be deep without being destructive. It can be passionate without becoming unstable. It can be spiritual while remaining grounded in reality. As your special person considers returning, let them understand that they are not coming back to the same arrangement. They cannot expect your door to remain open while they stand outside deciding whether to enter. They cannot ask you to wait while they explore every other possibility. They cannot offer half of themselves and demand all of you. If they want partnership, they must arrive with intention. They do not need to have every answer. They do not need to be perfectly healed. But they must be honest, willing, and responsible. They must be able to say, "I do not want to repeat what I did. I understand why you are cautious. I am willing to rebuild slowly. I will not punish you for needing evidence. I am prepared to communicate even when I am uncomfortable." Those words, supported by consistent behavior, could become the beginning of something new. Not a return to the past. A new relationship between two people who have been changed by what happened. Perhaps one day soon, they will finally stand before you. They may struggle to meet your eyes. Their voice may tremble. They may begin speaking and then stop because everything they rehearsed suddenly feels inadequate. You may see regret upon their face. You may also feel emotions you thought you had already buried. Part of you may want to embrace them. Another part may want to ask why they took so long. Do not judge yourself for feeling both. Love and pain can occupy the same heart. Let the first conversation remain a conversation. You do not need to decide your entire future during that meeting. Listen carefully. Notice whether they speak only about how much they suffered, or whether they also recognize what you endured. Notice whether they blame circumstances, or whether they accept their choices. Notice whether they ask what you need. Notice whether they respect the boundaries you establish. Their willingness to face discomfort will tell you more than a dramatic confession. They may finally say, "I cannot look at you because I know what I did. I knew you loved me, and I rejected you anyway. I thought I could forget you. I thought someone else would make the feelings disappear. But every path brought me back to the truth. You are the person my heart still chooses. I believe you were my divine partner, and I was too afraid to accept it. I do not expect you to trust me immediately. I only want the chance to tell you the truth." If those words come, breathe before responding. Allow your heart to hear them, but let wisdom stand beside your heart. You may tell them, "I never needed you to be fearless. I needed you to be honest." That sentence may contain the entire lesson. You were not asking them to know exactly how the story would end. You were asking them not to destroy the connection simply because they could not control the future. Courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means speaking truthfully while fear is present. They are learning that now. Whether they learned it soon enough will be revealed with time. Do not rush time. What is genuine can survive observation. If their return is sincere, patience will strengthen it. If their return is based only on loneliness, patience will expose it. Let days and actions answer questions that emotional words cannot. Watch how they behave after they feel reassured that you still care. Some people make extraordinary efforts only while they fear losing access. Once they feel secure, old habits return. A transformed person remains intentional after the immediate danger has passed. They continue communicating. They keep promises. They admit mistakes. They do not make you beg for basic clarity. This is what your heart deserves. Dear soul, the heavenly message is not asking you to wait endlessly. It is not commanding you to accept a person who continues to hurt you. It is reminding you that hidden truth may exist beneath visible avoidance. Your person may be unable to look at you because love, regret, and shame have collided inside them. But the truth inside their heart must eventually become a truthful choice. Until then, remain centered. Do not chase them for a confession. Do not search for signs in every small event. Do not cross boundaries because you believe the connection is destined. If they want to return, they must approach freely and clearly. Your peace should not depend upon guessing what they feel. You have already spent enough time interpreting silence. The next chapter, if there is one, must begin with words that are supported by action. Pray for clarity, not merely reunion. Pray that what is hidden becomes visible. Pray that you recognize the difference between genuine transformation and temporary regret. Pray for the strength to remain open without becoming unprotected. Pray for the courage to say yes if healthy love arrives. Pray for the courage to say no if the old cycle attempts to return. God's guidance will not require you to ignore reality. It will lead you toward truth. Perhaps your special person is now sitting alone, remembering the day they rejected you. Perhaps they are imagining your face because they do not yet possess the courage to stand before it. They may finally understand that you were not asking for anything unreasonable. You wanted to be chosen honestly. You wanted a love that could speak its own name. You wanted someone who did not hide you whenever the connection became inconvenient. They were unable to offer that before. Now the possibility of losing you permanently has forced them to decide what kind of person they want to become. Let that decision belong to them. Do not perform their growth for them. Do not make their return so easy that they never confront what caused the separation. Compassion does not require you to remove every consequence. Sometimes the consequence is what teaches a person to value what they once treated carelessly. If they return, let them return with humility. If they apologize, let the apology be complete. If they ask for another chance, let them understand that a chance is not the same as restored trust. Trust will return through small moments. A message answered honestly. A promise kept. A difficult conversation completed without withdrawal. A boundary respected. An old trigger handled differently. This is how love becomes safe again. Not through one grand speech. Through a new pattern. And if that new pattern appears, allow yourself to recognize it. Do not remain so loyal to your pain that you refuse to see genuine change. Boundaries are meant to protect your heart, not imprison it forever. You can remain discerning and still be hopeful. You can remember the past without assuming it must repeat. You can forgive without becoming naive. But let forgiveness be your free choice. Do not offer it because spiritual language makes you feel guilty. Your emotions deserve time. Your questions deserve answers. Your healing deserves respect. Dear soul, you may always hold a meaningful place inside this person's heart. They may carry your memory for the rest of their life. But your purpose is not merely to become unforgettable. You deserve to be loved visibly. You deserve someone who can look at your face without running from the truth reflected there. You deserve a person who does not simply recognize your value after losing access to you. You deserve someone who protects that value while you are present. If your special person has truly awakened, this is what they must now learn to do. They must stop treating love as something they feel privately and reject publicly. They must stop hiding behind fear. They must stop expecting destiny to repair what their choices damaged. They must participate in the answer to their own prayer. And you must remember that being their divine partner does not mean becoming the place where they repeatedly deposit their pain. Partnership means mutual care, mutual honesty, mutual effort, mutual freedom. Both people must choose. Both people must remain accountable. Both people must be able to look at one another and speak the truth. The day may come when they finally lift their eyes toward yours. At first, the moment may feel unbearable to them. They may see the love they lost. They may see the pain they created. But if they continue looking, they may also see something else. A possibility. Not a guarantee. Not automatic forgiveness. A possibility that honesty could create a different ending. Your eyes may no longer offer the innocent trust they once received. But they may still offer space for truth. What happens after that will depend upon character. Will they remain present? Will they speak without hiding? Will they listen without defending every mistake? Will they allow your answer to be free? Real love does not force. Even if they believe with their entire heart that you are their divine partner, they must respect your decision. If you choose reconciliation, they must be grateful rather than entitled. If you choose closure, they must accept that their delayed realization does not erase your freedom. That respect will be one of the clearest signs that their love has matured. Dear soul, say quietly within yourself, I do not need to chase someone who recognizes my value. I do not need to convince another person that our connection was real. I welcome honest love, but I will not accept repeated confusion. I can remain compassionate without abandoning my boundaries. I can listen to an apology without surrendering my judgment. I trust consistent actions more than intense promises. I release the need to control the ending. Let these words settle your heart. You do not have to know today whether this story ends in reunion or release. You only need to remain aligned with truth. Your special person may still love you more than anyone. They may finally recognize the sacred place you held in their life. They may be unable to forget your face because your face reminds them of home, honesty, and a love they rejected before they understood its value. But recognition is only the beginning. The next step is courage. Then accountability. Then patience. Then consistent action. If they complete those steps, perhaps the person who once turned away will become someone capable of standing beside you. Perhaps the rejection will not be the final chapter. Perhaps it will become the painful turning point that forced both of you to grow. But if they refuse those steps, let the lesson remain a lesson. You do not need to live forever inside an unfinished story. You can bless what was meaningful and continue forward. You can love someone and still recognize that they are not prepared to love you responsibly. That is not failure. That is wisdom. Now receive this prayer. May every hidden truth be brought gently into the light. May your special person find the courage to face the love they once rejected. May regret become responsibility rather than obsession. May shame no longer cause them to hide. May they learn to look at your face and speak honestly about what happened. May every excuse fall away. May they understand that calling you a divine partner means nothing without treating you like a valued partner. May their words become clear. May their behavior become consistent. May their heart become mature enough to protect what it once feared. And may your heart remain peaceful throughout this process. May you never again question your worth because another person lacked courage. May you remain open to sincere transformation without becoming vulnerable to repeated harm. May you receive the truth without being pressured by it. May you forgive in the way and time that brings genuine healing. May you recognize whether this connection is meant to be rebuilt or lovingly released. May God guide both hearts toward honesty. May no person use fate, loneliness, guilt, or spirituality to control the other. May every choice be freely made. May love become calmer, safer, and more responsible. May the next chapter contain fewer promises and more evidence. Dear soul, they do not avoid your face because you became unimportant. They avoid it because your importance has become impossible to deny. They now know that you are the one their heart never managed to forget. They still hear your voice in quiet moments. They still remember the way your presence made them feel understood. They still compare the peace they felt with you to every connection that came afterward. They know you loved them. They know they rejected that love. And now they must live with the truth that the person they pushed away may have been the divine partner they had been praying to find. But you are not required to remain frozen while they decide what to do with that realization. Continue living. Continue healing. Continue strengthening the life you are building. If they are meant to return, let them meet you on the path of truth. Let them come without games. Let them come without mixed signals. Let them come prepared to answer the questions they once avoided. Let them show you that their heart is no longer ruled by fear. And when they finally look at your face, do not hide the strength you gained during their absence. Let them see that you still possess tenderness. Let them also see that tenderness now lives beside wisdom. You are no longer asking to be chosen. You are observing whether they have become capable of choosing well. That is the difference. Their realization may be real. Their love may be deep. Their regret may be sincere. But the future will be decided by what they do next. Let them speak. Let them act. Let time reveal whether they have changed. You were never impossible to love. They were simply afraid of the depth of love they felt for you. You were never too much. The connection required more honesty than they were ready to offer. You were not rejected because you lacked value. You were rejected because they had not yet developed the courage to receive something valuable without running from it. Now they see the truth. You are the person their heart cannot forget. You are the love every other connection has failed to replace. You are the face they avoid because it reflects both their greatest feeling and their deepest regret. You may indeed be the divine partner they once rejected. But if they want to call you their partner now, let them demonstrate partnership. Let them remain when fear rises. Let them communicate when confusion appears. Let them protect the connection when outside voices become loud. Let them take responsibility when they make a mistake. Let them respect your boundaries while trust is rebuilt. Let them love you in a way that can finally be experienced, not merely imagined. Until that happens, remain still within yourself. Do not chase the person who turned away. Do not beg them to look at you. The truth has already begun turning their heart back toward your face. When they are ready to confront what they feel and what they did, they will have to lift their eyes. They will have to speak. They will have to choose. And this time, dear soul, you will also have a choice. Choose with love. Choose with wisdom. Choose without fear. If a new beginning is created, let it be honest. If closure is necessary, let it be peaceful. Whatever happens, remember this: their rejection never determined your worth. Their regret does not create your value. You were precious before they understood you. You remained precious while they avoided you. And you will remain precious whether they return or continue looking away. Their heart may never be able to forget you. But your heart deserves more than being remembered. It deserves to be chosen, respected, protected, and loved by someone who has finally learned how to stay.